Hi everyone, welcome to the fifth part in the lecture series for the theory of Raman effect. And in this lecture we are finally going to learn about what the Raman effect is, how it occurs and why it occurs. So for this we will require everything that we have learned in the last 4 lectures, and we'll now begin by looking at a system. Suppose this is our initial system H0. Some system can be anything, like take the hydrogen molecule for instance. So suppose this is our initial system and we perturb it with some external influence. So we already know if it's a time independent perturbation, then if it had initial energy levels, then on application of perturbation the levels are just going to shift either higher or lower depending on what kind of perturbation is allowed. So like if these were the reference levels and the perturbation increased the energy, then the energy levels are just going to shift upwards, and we already saw that by deriving an expression for it. So the energy corrections that we introduced were these E square, E2 and higher order corrections. So there was just a shift of the energy levels for the stationary states. So now suppose we have a system and we disturb it with a time dependent influence. So what's going to happen to its stationary states? Any guess? So for this system there aren't going to be any stationary states. No stationary states. Why? Because our whole potential is now time dependent and the wave function is going to continuously evolve in time. There won't be any such thing as the stationary states, as there's for this case there's nothing called the time independent Schrodinger equation. No, this is a no for this case. So for this case the wave functions will evolve according to the time dependent Schrodinger equation, which is given by h psi equal to IH cross time derivative of psi. So wave function evolves with time according to this equation for a time dependent potential. So what do we want by studying these kind of systems, and why should we study? So for this video, as I told, that we are going to study the Raman effect. So in any spectroscopic study, what we do is we apply an external electric field. So our perturbation is usually a time varying electric field which is sinusoidal in time. So our external perturbation always looks, or not always, in spectroscopic measurements looks like this. So it's an oscillatory perturbation, which is oscillatory, where the time dependent part is oscillatory. So we want to know what happens after applying these perturbations. So as we saw in time independent perturbation, the energy levels were raised, but in this case there's no such thing as energy levels while the perturbation is on. And in these cases what we see is that the system makes a transition from one state to another once we switch off the perturbation. So what I mean to say by that is that suppose you have an initial Hamiltonian is 0 for the system, and suppose these are the energy levels for that. So let's name them 1, 2, 3 and so on. And so let's draw a time scale. So this is my time scale. Suppose initially for some time I have an unperturbed system, and after some time, suppose t equal to I Ti, I switch on some time dependent perturbation. So as I know that while the perturbation is on, there's no such thing as the stationary states. So whatever state the particle or the system is in, that state evolves with time. And when we switch off the perturbation after some time, suppose Tf, then again we have our H0. So before Ti we had H0, at Ti we had Ht plus H0. After Ti, between Ti and Tf, and again after Tf we have H0. So since we have H0, we are again going to have the same levels, and this goes on 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on. So initially we had the same level, same stationary levels. Finally we have the same stationary levels as our Hamiltonian is the same. But what happens in between? Suppose the particle is initially in the state 0, and now we turn on the time dependent perturbation, and while the perturbation is on, the system evolves according to our time dependent Schrodinger equation. And since the system has now evolved, when we switch off the perturbation, it might not be in the same state. So we may find it in some other state. Suppose we find it in state 2. So here we say that the system has undergone a transition. So as you see, transitions occur when we apply a time dependent perturbation on the system. And to if you want an analogy, think like suppose this is your room, and suppose this is your room. This is some place and you are standing here, and you have a chair or table, something here, and while you are standing or maybe playing happily, something at time t equal to Ti, an earthquake, there's a sudden earthquake in your place till time Tf. So when there's an earthquake, everything will start to shake. You won't know what's happening till the earthquake goes on, and suddenly after that time Tf, what you will see is that you may find your table is shifted somewhere, or say suppose you were at position X, you are shifted somewhere else due to this earthquake. So during this earthquake you shook and you don't know how you moved, and this chair also moved due to this earthquake. While the earthquake was going on, you were not aware of how you were moving, but after the earthquake was switched off, you suddenly see that you and the table both are shifted. So in this case, what I'll say is that you and your table have made a transition from initial position X to the final position, some different position, let's say that Y. So yeah, this might not be a good example, but yeah, this will suffice for what we are going to study next. So let's at this moment let's digress a little bit and look at basic vectors. So suppose you have a vector. So let's consider a 2D coordinate system, and let this be your x direction, this be your y direction. Suppose you have a vector, initial vector, which is a, which is in the direction x. So it's a x cap. And now what you do is you rotate this vector by suppose 30 degree. You are rotating this vector. So what actually has happened is that you have rotated this vector by 30 degree. So this is now my vector which is something like cx cap plus dy cap. It's not ax cap anymore. So you have rotated this vector to 30 degree. So what we will say is that on application of 30 degree rotation to a vector, I have now changed its orientation to cx cap plus dy cap. So now you will see for that this vector still has some component along the x direction. Let it be cx. But now initially what we saw that the vector was totally along x direction and it didn't had any y components. So the y component was 0. But now the vector has a y component. It's d. So what you can say is that on rotation of the vector a by 30 degree, the vector has gained some y component, or you can say that the vector has made a transition from being only x to a superposition of x and y, or you can also say that the vector has slightly transited to y-axis also. So I'll say it like and you can measure how much of this transition or rotation occurred by this also. Suppose R30 you apply it on a vector and now you take its projection on y-axis. So what is this when you apply this? So dot product gives a projection along any vectors. So this is just cx cap plus dy cap, and this is going to give me d. Okay, so and so now if we do d by a, where a is the magnitude of the previous vector and d is the y component of the new vector, so this is going to tell me how much fraction of that vector has made a transition to the y-axis. Transited to y-axis. So let's again go back to time dependent perturbation. So here what we see is that on application of H1 the time dependent perturbation, our initial system transited from 0th state to 2nd state. So we can measure how much the system has transited by this integral, just like we have here. We take the projection along the new axis, so we apply the perturbation on our system, that is initial state, and after that we take its projection along the final state, and this integral, just like that dot product, is going to give me how much of my system made this transition. So this is this in Hilbert space is just like a dot product in normal Cartesian coordinates. So you get it. So HT makes the 0th state to transition to 2nd state, and on taking this projection we will get a measure of how much our system changed from 0 to 2. So now what we do is that So now that we know that if our system is initially at some state A, and if we apply a perturbation, time dependent perturbation on it, then it's going to make some transition to another state B, and this quantity, this inner product, is going to give me the measure of how much that transition occurred. So if you have some knowledge about the transition probabilities, so in time dependent systems, this probability is given by the square of this quantity is proportional to, suppose let's name this VAB. This is proportional to the square of this quantity. So now we see, we know that we have seen this in our previous videos, that the polarization, the polarizability tensor elements of a system looks something like this. So, and this was some energy difference, EI minus EM. So what happens in Raman effect is that this polarizes, the system gets polarized due to this electric field, and when system gets polarized means a dipole is induced, and the magnitude of that induced dipole is given by alpha times the electric field which is applied. So this is the dipole induced in that molecule, and when that dipole, again this dipole interacts with this electric field, so so let's call this will be the dipole which will be in our system. So this is the dipole induced in our system, and our perturbation is going to look like mu dot E. So if we work out the expression for the transition probability, so I'm not going to derive it in this video, but if you want I can make a separate video to derive this. It's just a very long calculation. So let me state the results here. So this probability is given by, is proportional to VAB square, or rather I should say that let's look at VAB only. If we know VAB, then we can calculate the VAB square, and then VAB square is proportional to the transition probability. So in some ways, if we know this VAB term, then we will be able to make a guess about what the transition probability is. So let's look at what the VAB is. So if we calculate VAB, it's going to turn out, so looking at the expression for alpha, we know that this is going to get, this term is going to get some expression like this only, and this turns out that the expression that we get, so suppose, so let's call it VIF. The system is making a transition from initial to final state. So this will be F mu dot E I, so not I, this M mu dot E I, and this is some energy term. This is a constant, so let's ignore this term for now. Let's focus on what this is. So as you can compare this, these two are very much alike, and this is actually the H1 term here, the external, the interaction of the system with the external potential. So now again we look at this quantity A to B. So H1 acts on A, it transforms this into some other state B. So what we are going to see is that our external potential first transforms first acts on some that initial state, it takes that to some other state, and then again this this interaction is going to act on the same state. The ant gonna take it to another state, that is our final state. So let's look this in terms of energy levels. So suppose these are the energy levels for our system. Please don't take them the spacing seriously. These are not two scales. So let's name them. Suppose this is the first state, second, third, fourth, and so on. So some states are there. So suppose initially our system is in 0th state. So what's going to happen? So the system is first going to take an incident radiation and it's going to take it to some higher state. So suppose it takes it to 5th state, and then again the 5th state is going to absorb another radiation and it's going to take it back to some other state. Okay, so that's what this whole expression signifies, is that you have some initial state and the external perturbation takes it to some other state, and this state again takes up some perturbation and takes it to another state. So in some sense you can consider it to be a 2-photon process. So that is one absorption and one emission. So this is absorption, and in this process it's going to emit radiation. So you might consider this as stimulated emission. So whatever it is, so it takes in 2 steps and you can consider it to be a 2-photon process. So the VAB term is the sum over all such transitions. So it is possible that it's making a transition from 0 to 3, 3 to 2, and again 0 to 4, 4 to 1, maybe. I'm just saying it. Suppose our initial state is, so let I be 0 and F be 2. Then what this term signifies is that it's a collection of all these transitions. So 0 to 3, 3 to 0 to 3, 3 to 2, 3 to 2, 0 to 4, 4 to 2, then 0 to 5, 5 to 2, 0 to 6, 6 to 2, 0 to 7, 7 to 2. And what we actually say for like so VAB is a collection of all these transitions, and in practice what we like to say about this collective terms is that our system is initially in some state 0 and it makes a transition to suppose state 2 by making a transition to an intermediate virtual state. So we tell that this is not the actual stationary state of a system, and from here it makes its transition back to a system to the stationary states 2, and we tell it that V is the virtual state. In actuality, in real situation, this is what is happening. The system is making collective absorptions and emissions in some sense, and the sum of the contributions from all those transitions is in practice represented by this single diagram, and we say that the system is making a transition from some initial state to virtual state and again coming back down from this virtual state to our final state. So if you have already studied Raman and don't know what these final states, virtual states mean, the virtual states have this significance. So to summarize, in Raman effect, it's a 2-step process. Now I'm summarizing with this diagram. So it first absorbs a photon, then it reaches a virtual state. What's actually happening is this, and then again it releases a photon and comes back down to this state. So it's a 2-photon process. And for selection rules, if you have done any vibrational spectroscopy or rotational spectroscopy, you might realize that this is a similar term if a molecule has a permanent dipole, and for each term the state makes a transition, and the selection rule for that is delta J equal to plus minus 1. So for both of these terms, 2 photons, that will be sum of these two, that is J equal to plus minus 2 or 0. Or you can also think of it like, since it's a 2-photon process and each photon is a boson with a spin intrinsic spin value of plus 1, so if it's a 2-photon process, the net momentum change in that process can only be the sum of the 2 momentas or the difference of the 2 momentas, that is 1 plus 1 equal to 2 or 1 minus 1 equal to 0. So you can just think of the selection rule as like this only, or no. So there's gonna be a separate video on how the selection rules are sorted out, but this is just to make you a feel about what's going on. And to tell you one other thing, if that system comes back to a higher energy state, then it has actually, so the scattered radiation which comes out, it's of a lower frequency than this one, and this is called a Stokes shift, and if it comes down to some lower level, then it's called an anti-Stokes shift. So I think that's all. So let's again review this expression. So the transition probability is proportional to this quantity VAB, as we saw earlier, and this VAB turns out to be this thing for molecule with polarizabilities, that is induced dipole moments, and this is just a form of collection of all these transitions from initial state to some state, and from that some state to the final state, and the collection of all those transitions is given by this diagram, and we say that the system has transited from some lower state to some virtual state, and from virtual state to some ground state. So as you see that this virtual state is nothing but just a mathematical construct to make our life easy. And so that's all the theory of Raman effect. There's going to be another video on selection rules, and if you have any doubts, please comment below. Also to make suggestions for me to improvise my videos, and if you don't understand anything that was there in this video and you want me to make a video on that topic, please comment. So thank you, and see you in the next video.